When you think of the impact prime ministers have had on the nation, few can match Clement Attlee. Under him, Labour set up the NHS and the modern welfare state, nationalised 1/5 of the British economy, and started a big house-building programme. It also began dismantling the British Empire.
And the seeds for all that change were sown here in the East End of London. This was the heart of Britain's trading empire. Goods arrived at the docks from all over the world. Also arriving, people seeking new lives, including many Jews fleeing persecution in Eastern Europe.
London was the biggest city on earth, the East End one of its poorest districts and a centre of radical politics. The fact that Clement Attlee came to live here at all might seem surprising. His family were comfortably off, conservative-leaning, although his father backed the Liberals. After public school and Oxford, he was set for a career in the law. But the Attlees believed in public service, and in 1905 he began volunteering as a youth worker at a boys' club in Stepney, becoming resident manager at Haileybury House. Financially secure, thanks to an inheritance, he quit his law career for social work.
Within a few years, he'd moved here to Toynbee Hall, the best known of the university settlement houses in the East End. Young graduates lived here, trying to help improve the lives of local people. Toynbee Hall still works for the local community today. This facade gives a sense of how it appeared when Attlee first came here in the early 20th century. Its design was modelled on an Oxbridge college. This place feels like the Quad. Here in the Ashby Room, residents would gather around this rather long dining table to put the world to rights. Among them, another major 20th century figure, William Beveridge.
Decades later, he would write the Beveridge Report, which would inspire the modern welfare state. And it was Attlee's government which would implement the welfare reforms. Attlee, like Beveridge before him, served as secretary at Toynbee Hall. By then, it offered legal and mediation services to locals, but there was still a strong educational ethos.
This lecture hall was the setting for the weekly smoking room debates. They drew quite a crowd. A young Russian called Vladimir Ilyich Lenin was in the audience for one of them. Attlee eventually decided that more direct political action was needed to bring about social change.
Attlee's own political career began in 1919 when he was elected mayor of Stepney through the newly formed local Labour Party. By then, he was Major Attlee, having served with distinction in the First World War. And his war record helped him into Parliament in 1922, defeating the Liberals to become Labour MP for Limehouse.
Attlee was a popular local MP, which was the key to his political survival. At the 1931 general election, Labour lost more than 200 seats. Attlee clung on in Limehouse, but he was one of only 52 Labour MPs elected.
In 1935, the Labour conference defied party leader George Lansbury to back sanctions against Italy over the invasion of Abyssinia. Lansbury quit. Conservative Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin seized the moment to call a general election. Attlee was made interim leader.
Despite his wartime service and his political training on the streets of the East End, Attlee cut an unassuming figure. Slightly built, dressed in his trademark three-piece suit. The COVID mask is a more recent addition. He looked like a suburban bank manager. But political rivals who thought they could outsmart him frequently found themselves outmanoeuvred.
Labour gained 100 seats in the 1935 general election, and Attlee won the ensuing party leadership contest. In 1940, Attlee took Labour into a wartime coalition with the Conservatives, enabling Churchill to take over as Prime Minister. While Churchill was centre stage, Attlee proved effective behind the scenes, keeping the nation running. London and the East End paid a heavy price in the Blitz. Hundreds were killed and thousands injured, many bombed out of their homes. The government commissioned William Beveridge to examine how Britain could be rebuilt after the war. His report called for action against the five giants: want, disease, ignorance, idleness and squalor. Churchill led Britain to victory in the Second World War. Many people expected him to win the general election in 1945, but it was Attlee who emerged victorious. Labour won by a landslide. There were big personalities in the new Labour cabinet, among them Foreign Secretary Ernie Bevin and Health Minister Aneurin Bevan, but the unassuming Mr Attlee held his party together. The economic situation was challenging. Britain had won the war, but at great financial cost. And Attlee had to negotiate support from a US administration wary of Britain's new socialist government.
Given those pressures, what the Labour government achieved was remarkable.
Including free healthcare for all and social security provision from the cradle to the grave, building on the work Attlee had begun as a young graduate in Stepney. Despite the popularity of the NHS, Britain was still in the grip of post-war austerity. Labour won the 1950 election with a tiny majority of 5. In 1951, he was on the campaign trail again, calling a snap general election to try to increase his majority. But Labour lost to the Conservatives, led by his wartime colleague, Winston Churchill. Attlee stepped down as Labour leader in 1955 and later joined the House of Lords.
Clement Attlee died in 1967, a modest figure to the end, but he was a political giant who presided over one of the most radical reforming governments in British history.
Remembered in the homes and streets of the nation he helped to shape.
And now we see springing up, where he dealt destruction, these lovely new flats.